session is obviously more focused on the August Tree Festival. But to reach August Tree Festival, we have to go through how Season Watch works and what we've found so far just to get you more motivated to look at trees around us. And finally, we'll come to how to join the tree festival. So, today we'll be talking about trees and seasons. I'm sure some of you have joined our webinars today or before today and sort of know what Season Watch is about. But I'm really glad that you joined for maybe a refresher or just a revision. And of course, Season Watch is all about tracking climate change, really trying to understand how climate change is impacting our tree seasonality. So that's what we're trying to do with the project, and I'll take you through how Season Watch can be used by people to track trees around them, to connect with them better, to document your observations, and so on. And what do we know so far from the beautiful data that people have uploaded to the platform so far? We've tried to analyze data from Kerala, which is a star state where a lot of people, students and teachers especially, have been uploading observations. And we tried to analyze that and understand what weather parameters prompt trees to produce their flowers and fruits, some tree species. Then we'll of course come to how to season watch. I'll show you some screenshots of the app so that we can go through how it works and what is needed to be done. It's a really small 2-minute procedure, but it is very rewarding for me personally. And you also learn a lot of things about trees by doing or dedicating those 2 minutes of your week to looking at trees. And lastly, we'll come to celebrating the August Tree Festival. So to dive into it, you've mentioned some of your favorite trees, and I want you now to think about how that tree changes through the seasons or throughout the year. Does it look the same? Does it look different? What are the changes that you see? And you can also put them in the chat box, and we can take a minute to sort of reminisce about our favorite tree and the different phases that it shows. So my favorite tree is drumstick, and I'm still in confusion about whether it flowers throughout the year. It does a little bit, or some individuals. There are two trees that I follow with season watch, and one of the trees is always flowering. It's an older tree, and it's also in a different location than the smaller tree that I monitor. And the older tree seems to be flowering much more profusely than the younger tree, and the younger tree is starting to flower right now. So throughout the summer, except for in the beginning of the summer, it did not have any flowers. It had these fruits that really dried up in the heat and also cracked open, and there were pieces of drumsticks on the ground, which is a bit weird to see when you think about how we eat these fruits and relish them so much. But right now in monsoon, the flowers have started coming up, and now there's a carpet of flowers under the tree. So even if you don't look up at tree, sometimes you see their faces fallen under the tree, and that just gives you an idea what's going on with the tree. And I love doing that, just looking under the trees to find what's going on. So trees have different phases. They change their leaves, their flowers, their fruits, their timings for the appearance and disappearance of all of these phases. And here's just one example of the Indian almond tree, one of the trees that give us all the experience of autumn of the west and north. Um, and this is how the tree changes from month to month. So in January, this person who documented the tree saw beautiful red older leaves on the tree, but in February they were all fallen and it was full of new leaves. And similar thing happens like this thing about trees. It happens in cyclicity and more or less a very nice schedule. For example, this amaltash or the Indian laburnum tree that my boss or team season watch team lead, Dr. Gita Ramaswamy, she's documented near her home in Bhubaneswar. She's seen that April every year the tree has these many flowers on the tree. So trees change, and they also change at specific timings of the year, and that's precisely what it why it makes them quite reliable to look at climate change. And I feel people often talk about birds and how they're everywhere, and it's so easy to look at them, but I personally find a bit difficult to bird. But trees, they're just there no matter what time of the day you go, and they patiently wait there for you to observe them, observe all their features, and take your time with them and engage, interact with them, engage with them, and so on. So I find tree watching much more peaceful and easier than bird watching. So that's also maybe why I'm with Season Watch and not some project that works with eBird. But that's basically why Season Watch has chosen trees to look at for understanding climate change. And of course, trees are so important. They form the basis of ecosystem and they provide food to all sorts of life forms around them and shelter. So they're also it's beneficial to understand if the trees are changing and how they're changing and what impact would that have on other life forms in that ecosystem. So this cyclicity in trees that we just talked about is called phenology, which is the life cycle events of organism and studying them or documenting them. And because we're doing this for trees, we're calling it tree phenology. And the stages that we see on trees are new leaves. They mature, they become working individuals who go to job every day, and then eventually they retire and they fall down. And the tree also has flower buds that blossom into open flowers. The flowers turn into fruits which are unripe in the beginning, then they eventually ripen, and they also dehisce, which means they crack open and they disperse their seeds. So all of these stages that appear on the tree are the life cycle events, and studying or documenting them is called tree phenology, and that's what Season Watch is based upon. And this is an example of what a phenology of a single individual tree or species of tree looks like. This is the red silk cotton that some of you mentioned in the chat box as your favorite tree. And this is how the new leaves of red silk cotton look like. This is a fully grown mature leaf. These are old leaves which are about to fall off, and this is likely to be in the winter or beginning of summer. And after the tree is entirely leafless or bare, as you have must have noticed, the flowers appear and the buds look very beautiful, almost like beak of a bird. And then they bloom into this whole tree, turning red. And then they eventually turn into fruits, which are green spindles initially. Then they turn brown and they also split open to show the beautiful cotton inside, and that keeps flying around and adorning our lands. So this is the phases that one would see in red silk cotton. And now the question is, we talked about how the trees follow a schedule, but are they doing that right now? Or have they changed the schedule a little bit? And what is causing this change? In a very broad sense, it is climate change. We can say that trees have started flowering sooner or lesser or later also in some cases, or they just don't flower sometimes. And there are all kinds of varied changes that trees have been showing as a result of erratic climate, which is a result of climate change. So, what we're trying to do is follow their schedule and to understand what kind of changes are the trees showing and whether we can track these changes to predict what would happen in the future so that we can prepare in advance to deal with whatever trees are going through and how our lives will be affected because of that. Now, Season Watch was inspired by multiple projects across the world when we started in 2010, and it's one of our favorite examples and projects to talk about, which is the sakura or cherry blossom tree of Japan. And we know that Japanese culture and economy and the country as a whole is inseparable from its cherry blossom trees. People really adore them, and they celebrate the Sakura festival, and people from all over the world pour into the country to see the mass blooming of cherry blossom. And that's what happens in temperate regions or regions where only temperature drives the changes in nature. So what is observed through centuries since 800, as per the records, is that cherry blossom had been blooming between 10th and 20th of April. We see this graph is fluctuating, but it nevertheless falls between 10th and 20th of April. But since 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution and effectively climate change started, this trend sort of changed quite drastically, and the flowering now falls between 1st and 10th of April. Now, if you think about it, it's not much of a change. It's just about 8 to 10 days of difference in the flowering. And that's a human perspective to look at it, look at this difference. But think about maybe caterpillars or birds. This 8 to 10 days can be life and death situation for other organisms which are dependent on cherry blossom and its flowering period. So understanding trees is or tracking them and their seasonality is helpful in understanding or seeing the reflection of climate change on their seasonality, and then it can also help us predict how other animals would respond to that. And speaking of other animals is another example from the Oxfordshire. where scientists have been studying pedunculate oak for 75 years. And this tree, like other temperate trees or trees that change as per the temperature, it goes leafless in autumn and it stays completely bare in winter. But in spring, it starts producing these new leaves, very lush green leaves, along with flowers and fruits and everything that is supposed to be productive for the tree. And in spring, when the leaves are out, there's a winter moth that lays eggs on these leaves, and these larvae come out, or the caterpillars come out. And when there's an abundance of these caterpillars chomping on the delicate new leaves of pedunculate oak, there's also this bird called great tit who catches these larvae and feeds them to the chicks, which hatch at the same time as these two phenomena happening. And people have been noticing that there was some mismatch since past few years. And what they noticed was pedunculate oak was putting out leaves sooner. And it took some time for the rest of the cycle to follow or to adjust to this change. And winter moth, being a smaller, less complicated organism, adjusted to it much sooner. And it also matched with the earlier leafing of pedunculate oak, but Great did lost some of his generations to this sudden change. And it took some time, but eventually in 2021, I think the paper came out, or they announced to the world that the Great Tit has also adjusted to this new cycle of pedunculate oak and winter moth larvae. So this whole system, this food chain, has shifted 3 weeks earlier. Now, 3 weeks is a much bigger time than the 10 days of Sakura, and that can, as you can imagine, can have a much bigger impact on the animals that depend on the trees. And it also happens that this is an anecdotal information. This is not documented or scientifically proven yet, but I have noticed that if flowers bloom before they're supposed to bloom, then the honeybees in the area don't know that the flowers are there and they don't visit the tree. So those trees never fruit. And there were two such trees near my home in Mumbai where my parents stay. And those two trees always bloom much earlier than the rest of the Bauhinias or the purple orchid trees in the area. And I've never seen those two trees fruit. Of course, there could be many reasons to why this is happening, which is precisely why we need not just one person doing this, but many people pitching in their observations and all of us trying to together understand what's going on with the trees. That's why I can't really for sure say that the reason for not fruiting is no, like the flowering happening sooner. So I don't really know, but hopefully we'll be able to find out soon with the season watch data with all of your participation. So yeah, so we have Sakura and pedunculate oak displaying how climate change is impacting their life cycle events and how other animals are actively being affected. And these kind of studies in a tropical system are much complicated to do, not just because there's a lot of diversity, but also because trees have different kinds of life cycles in India. So we have a great diversity. As you can imagine, they're from different places in the country. And I'm sure we know what the landscape in our area looks like and how it's different from other parts of the country. And the trees in India, they don't follow just temperature like sakura and pedunculate oak do. So they're sensitive to temperature, rainfall, day length, and many other environmental factors that they're surrounded by. And they also have different communities that they belong to. For example, a dry deciduous forest community or group of different plant species that grow together would be different compared to the same species growing in, say, a moist deciduous forest, for example. So we have different kinds of forests, different communities that the trees belong to, as well as different species that they belong to, and the different population groups that they belong to. So all of these also determine when they would flower, what would be the tentative timing of the trees to flower, fruit, shed their leaves, grow new leaves, etc. And inherently, our species don't have just one flowering cycle. I mean, some of them flower once a year, but some can have multiple flowering cycles, like I was telling you about the drumstick tree near my house. And they're both trees in the same area, but they're still doing different things. So, if I want to understand what drumstick as a species do, then we need more people from Pune, from Maharashtra, from Western India, or from India to pitch in their observations, and then we can sort of generalize from what is the general trend or most dominant trend seen in this data, and then we can say, okay, this is what drumstick typically does. And trees can also be aseasonal. So I'm thinking about a cherry, Singapore cherry tree. It flowers and fruits throughout the year, and that is called aseasonal. It doesn't really wait for seasons to change and for weather to be particularly favorable for them to flower and fruit, but they just continue doing that. So there's a lot of diversity basically, and the cycles are a bit more complicated than what is seen in the temperate regions. But we also have a big boon and beautiful way of observing how trees change. We have festivals, we have cultural practices, and we have sort of a story to look back on or to rely upon when we try to understand whether trees have been doing the same thing for generations, for years, or have they changed a bit. So I live in Maharashtra. We celebrate the New Year festival called Gudi Padwa, and Karnataka also has a festival called Ugadi, and both of us these communities use neem flowers and new leaves to celebrate these two festivals. So we know that during this March-April period, the neem tree are supposed to have flowers and fruits. Same goes for the Vishu festival in Kerala, which is also a harvest festival. And people use the flowers of Indian laburnum to celebrate Vishu. And so during 14th or 15th April every year, people know that all the Indian laburnum trees would should be in full bloom. They should have maximum number of flowers they can produce during that season. Or in the north, where there are rhododendrons, spring or summer is a time when they bloom, and their economy, tourism, a lot of other factors depend on flowering of these rhododendrons. Or in central India, and also in this part of the country, in the eastern south of the country, Mahua and Palash have special importance, and people know when they are supposed to flower, and they can track very easily without any scientific backing or proof to the observation that if the trends of these two trees have been changing, right? So we have festivals where we know that during this festival of the year, this tree is supposed to be doing this particular or showcasing this particular phase or stage of leaves, flower, or fruit. And if it's not present, then we know that something is off. So we already have that understanding and have this observation. And what needs to be done now is to put all of these observations together in one place so that they can be analyzed and talked about and pitched to the world and especially policymakers to give us a proof that there's something wrong happening with our landscape, and we need to have policies, we need to have systems in place that would help us mitigate the climate crisis, right? So that is the ultimate goal of season watch, is to have a good database, good observation, and scientifically sound outcomes that people can use to form their methods and strategies to deal with climate change. So season watch is one such platform that's attempting to do this, and we have an Android application which helps people to monitor their trees and upload their observations. This is the method that's used. I'll come to the details of that soon, and this is what the observation looks like. So what we are doing is with a climate change study, where citizen science project, which means anybody in the country can participate from anywhere they are in the country. And we look at 172 species. We recently added one more species from Kinnor, which is called Robinia, or I think the black locust tree, if I'm not mistaken. But we add species based on people's requirements. So if you think there's a tree around you, that's pretty common that you can monitor as much as possible. At least 13 days worth of the tree could be species could be monitored. Then we can add the species to our database. So just a fun fact, the season was started in 2010 with just 25 species of trees, but now we have 172. And that's based on all the feedback that we got from people across the country, and we added these species for them to be able to engage with the trees around them and gather data with a very simple format. So, what Season Watch does is look at stages of leaves, flowers, and fruits that we just listed in the beginning of the session. And how we do this monitoring is by looking at the tree once a week or even one-time observations. And this data, or these weekly or one-time observations, are helping us build a baseline of tree seasonality. So we know tentatively what trees do, but we don't know whether they still follow that timetable. So we have a baseline that we build, and then we compare what's happening in the future to this baseline. And it's of course like if we are going to meet our trees once every week, or actively look at trees all the time because this isn't watching them, you're going to form beautiful bonds with them. Like the students in Kerala and also Tamil Nadu and also Pondicherry and also in the north, in the Himalayan region, and in northeast, students have really named their own nicknames to their trees, to the trees that they observe every week. And they have these friendship with the trees that they monitor. And they become so emotional when something goes wrong with the tree, or if the tree has a bird nest, and they become very excited, like we would give an update about a friend to somebody else. So these are the kind of connections that are built over time. And these are, of course, examples of children, but I also feel that about trees near my house. And the most heartbreaking event is those trees getting chopped off. But I guess there's no solution to human nature and this way of harming the trees. But it's a good way to go beyond the understanding or the knowledge that there's this particular tree in my area. You can go and interact with that tree again and again, and go beyond knowing just its name. You can learn more about its life cycle, about how it behaves. This is basically a tree behavior study. Like we study animal behavior, it's something similar to that. So that's what Season Watch does, and that's everything that we're trying to do. And this is what or how the data is collected. So we look at stages of leaves, flowers, and fruits, like I mentioned. So the stages of leaves that we look at are fresh leaves, mature leaves, and dry leaves or dying leaves. For flowers, we look at buds and open flowers. In fruits, we look at unripe fruit, ripe fruit, and open fruit. So based on the species that we're looking at, these stages might change. For example, some fruits don't dehyce. Fig fruits, for example, they don't dehyce. So you won't see this stage or this section for noting your observation. You don't need to worry about that. And figs don't show flowers openly. So we also don't have to monitor flowers for a fig species. There are five fig species on season watch list. So all you have to monitor with figs is these three stages and these two stages. That's about it. And how you note it is we want to document what is the extent of leaves, flower, and fruit stages present on the tree while you're making the observation. So, for all of us to sort of have a consensus about how I'm tracking the stage of leaf, flower, and fruit, we have used this method called one third method, where we divide the tree canopy. Canopy is where the tree starts branching. So, anything above that is the whole canopy of the tree. So, we divide the canopy into three parts, and we see in how many of these three parts are my leaf, flower, or fruit stages present. If they're absent, then I put my observation as none. If it's present in any one of the three parts, my observation is few. If it's in two or all three parts of the canopy, then my observation is many. So this none, few, and many can be recorded for each of these stages. And I'll just show you one small example after this, and that can just give you an idea about how the data is collected. Now, I told you that there are two ways of sorry. Before that, from this data about the stages of leaves, flowers, and fruits and their presence on the tree and the extent of their presence on the tree, this is the kind of data that can be generated. This is a map of India where people have monitored the Gulmohar tree. You see, there's a lot of observations from Kerala because of highly motivated people, but scattered number of observations and not many in number from rest of the country. And this webinar is an effort to fill this up as well. And this is Delonix regia or Gulmohar, like I mentioned, and I am trying to look at when the tree flowers. So this is the stage of open flowers, and I'm looking at data from 2021 to 2023. And these are the 3 years of observation of Gulmohar, and I see that there are peaks during May, and there's one peak little before May in 2022, and again during May in 2023. So I can tell that May must be the most dominant season or time of the year when Gulmohar trees have maximum flowering. But right now, because most of this data is from Kerala, what I know is this is what happening in Kerala mainly. I can't really say what's happening in rest of the India. It can be different from what happens in Kerala because Kerala is so far south, and the flowering sort of gets later and later as we go up in the latitudes. So we need to find out what happens in different states with different trees that are present there. And that's why all the states need equal representation of that tree species. And that's when we can say, okay, this is what's happening in my state and this is how the trees change. So that's why more observation would refine this data, and more observation means more people have to contribute and collect data. And I said more people have to, but this is completely voluntary. You don't have to feel pressure to do this. But if you feel there's value to this, if you would like to add this to your to the way you document and interact with nature, I will I would be the happiest about it. And I told you in the beginning that there are some observations that we have used to understand how weather parameters predict or determine whether trees would flower or fruit, and when they will flower and fruit. So this is an example from Kerala. This is the data from Kerala that you can explore on our website. So if you go to Season Watch website, you go to the Explore tab on the top right corner, and there you see a section called Pattern. So if you go there, you can see Kerala data, one more field called Kerala data, and here you can see all of that. This whole study displayed there, and it's very easy to follow. So what we've done is we looked at jackfruit, tamarind, and mango, and I think 8 or 9 years of data on these three trees collected in Kerala. And we can look at flowering or fruiting of these three species. And then there are fields to choose what weather parameter you want to see the impact of. So here I've chosen jackfruit. I want to see how the fruiting happened in 2018. And I want to see what was the impact of rainfall, and along with rainfall, there are different weather parameters that play a very strong role. So, weather parameters are not playing on their own, but they also have interaction with fixed parameters in that geography, like elevation, aspect or direction of the slope, urbanization, which means light pollution essentially. So, rainfall and elevation have that relationship, which have the strongest impact on fruiting of jackfruit. And here I see that this is the rainfall pattern, and as rainfall increases the fruiting also sort of increases. And these both, that red dot, and that's the time period in 1 year in 2018 essentially, and you see how the fruiting changes as rainfall changes. So these gifs that dot keeps traveling across the time across the year, and that shows you how the fruiting changed, how the rainfall changed. And if you change the parameter, there'll be a different kind of gif appearing here, and that will help you understand how the fruiting or flowering of jackfruit or tamarind or mango change and are determined by what weather and geographic parameters. So I think this is mind blowing, because right now we say broadly that climate change is affecting these trees, but now we know that if this is the rainfall pattern of my year, what would be the fruiting pattern like? So if there's a community that is depending entirely on jackfruit fruiting for the economy, and if you can predict that this year there won't be much fruiting because this is the rainfall pattern that's predicted, then people can divert their source of income. They can look for something else, they can have some backup, or they will be prepared to face whatever happens when jackfruits don't fruit much that year, right? This is how it will help us prepare in advance for this climate crisis and its impact on our trees, especially these economically important trees. So this is what we're trying to do for all the trees, all 172 species that we have on our list, and to understand how the weather and the geography and the trees are playing together to produce flowers and fruits. Hmm. So now we come to how Season Watch works. So like I told you, we have an Android application and we have a website. You can use either of those to make your observations. Website is the only option for people who use iPhones for now, but we're trying really hard to get our app on the iOS as well. I hope that works out soon. They're just not convinced that we need to access the data for the location of the device in the offline mode as well. So you also have the option to make offline observations. If you're in a forest where you have no network, you can make observations for a one whole month, and when you come back in network, these observations get uploaded to the website. How you start with season watching is you get the app, and it's a very light app with no photo feature. with no ads, so you don't have to worry about how much space it takes on your phone. Um, but yeah, please get the app. It makes things very, very easy if you want to document your trees. Then you tap on register. So first step is to make an account for yourself so that all of your data is noted in your name. You can also choose whether you want your name to be displayed when this data is used. Yeah. So you put your name, whatever you want your username to be, email address that's workable and that you have an access to, set a password that you would easily remember, and select a state that you dominantly live in or spend most of the time in. So sorry about this. Yeah, and we also have three categories or four categories actually. We have individual for people who are doing this on their own. We have school for teachers, especially who want to involve the students in the season watching activity. We have colleges for professors and college students to upload their data. And we have one more section called Matrubhumi Seed that's only for Kerala. So you don't have to worry about that, or please don't use that when you register yourself. And you also have to agree to your data being used by people all around the world. It's citizen science. That means anyone in the world, including yourself, of course, the data is accessible to and can be used to draw patterns that we have seen so far. And once you register, your account is made and you can sign in and you can make your observations. So there are two ways to observing, like I mentioned before. There is regular observation, which is once a week observation. And how you do that is there's a regular tab in the first section of the app. You tap on this plus icon, or now it appears here. So press on that plus icon anywhere that it appears on your screen. And then you see a list of those 172 species on the season watch list. You select the species that you're looking at. So you need to be near the tree when you're doing all of this, like when you're adding a new tree. And you choose a species of the tree that you want to monitor once a week. Then you go ahead, tap on this arrow to move ahead in the data collection. Then you see a map of India, and you see this button here, which allows you to zoom into the map. So the zoom needs to be above 15 to be able to collect data. So please tap on this to zoom into the map. And that blue dot is your current location. And if you double tap on that, then your location is recorded. So this is what happens is this pin arrives when you double tap on the current location and your location is recorded. So your location meaning the location of the tree. Like we saw, the location is very essential in understanding how weather patterns change and how trees are supposed to behave. So that's why we're gathering location data. Then, because I'm going to look at my tree once every week, I don't want to be selecting the species and the location again and again because it might vary. The location, especially, can vary a little bit. So, I want to make an account for my tree as well, which is what I'm doing now, registering the tree. So I can give some details like I want to give it a nickname to remember which exact individual I'm going to be looking at. Whether that individual is placed, is growing in a garden or a park, roadside, forest, or campus. What kind of landscape is it growing in? And essentially to understand what amount of stress and environment it faces. Then you can add some notes about the tree if you know anything or if there's anything noteworthy about the tree. The height and girth are the most essential fields to enter, and this is approximate. You don't have to measure very accurately, but tree height in meters and tree girth, which is at the chest height. So when you stand near the tree, please measure the girth or the fatness of the trunk, essentially, at the chest height. So this height of the tree, and that can be in centimeters. So I don't carry a measuring tape with me. If you can do that, that's fantastic. But if you can't do that, then you just measure this distance for you. It can be about 15 to 20 centimeter, depending on how big your hand is. And then you just go around the tree, measuring this distance and seeing how much that is. And that gives you a tentative girth of the tree. And for height, what I do is I'm about 5 feet tall. So I stand near the tree and imagine how many of me standing on top of one another would reach the height of the tree, and that gives you your height in meters. So this is approximate to just make sure that the tree is old enough to be flowering and fruiting in every season. So we're only looking at trees that are fully grown, that have reached maturity, that are full grown adults, and they produce flowers and fruits. They're capable of producing flowers and fruits. So once we have all of this information, mainly the nickname, location type, and height and girth of the tree noted, then we go ahead, check our information, verify it once, and then you say add tree, and it appears in the first section of your app. So you just tap on this button to make your observation once every week. Okay, some things to remember. And when you tap on this button, of course, this is the information that you see. And I'll give you a revision about how to add these observations a little later. But this is essentially the data that we're collecting. We're not collecting any photos as of now, but this is the data that you would be uploading about your tree on the app. So some things to remember about observing trees once a week is you make only one observation per week, and that means we have four observations in a month. It is essential to make at least two observations a month. So if you think you can spend at least 2 weeks in a location, you can still add that tree to your list, to your regular observation section. And we can when you observe these trees weekly, then we can keep one day of the week dedicated to this observation. So, for example, today is a Saturday. If I start observing a new tree on a Saturday, my next observation will be on next Saturday. Next one will be on Saturday after that. So, Saturday is my day of season one observation of that tree. And I also follow the same time of the day preferably for making the observation. And another very important thing is, suppose this is the tree, like the laptop that I'm looking into right now is my tree, and I'm standing in front or in this particular location from my tree. So every observation that I make on the tree will be from this very location. I can't stand one day would be here, one day would be here, because that will change the face of the tree that I can see, and that would make my observation not very consistent. So we're trying to make the observation as evenly paced, as consistent as possible, and these are the features that allow us to do that. Now, if suppose you move from that area and you can't observe that tree anymore, just let it be. You can't delete it because it's the data that we can still understand and use. So this information cannot be deleted. But suppose you have made a mistake in the species of the tree, for example. So you can just edit it by logging into the website. The app doesn't allow you to do that. But you can go to the website and you can edit the observation and change the species and the location of the tree. Yeah. So these are the features of regular observation. And there's also another feature called casual observation, which is what we mostly use for the tree festivals, especially. And these are one-time observations. So you're traveling, say, from Pune, where I am right now, to Northeast, for example. So I'm not going to go there every week of the year. So I'll only make one-time observation, like taking a snapshot of the tree. Like I was visiting the area on 21st January, and this is what the tree was doing on that day in that location. That's what I'm telling by making that observation. So what you do is you swipe to right, you look for casual observation section, and you tap on this icon to see the list of trees that we have and choose the species of the tree that you want to monitor. Once you choose the species, you again go to the location of that species and do the same method like we did before. You tap on this button to zoom into the location, and then you double tap on the blue dot to put a pin on the location of the tree. And then you immediately go, when you tap on this blue arrow, you go to the phenology data of the tree. And some things to remember is only one observation per tree is ideal. But since we cannot know whether this tree has already been monitored, there can be repeats, but that can be dealt with at the data level. You don't have to worry about it. But try and not make repeat observations on the same tree. These observations cannot be edited, but they can be deleted from the app itself. So if you feel you made a mistake in this observation, you can just delete that observation and make one again, and that can be done from the app. So very easy. It takes literally 1 or 2 minutes once you get used to how to do this. And just to give a revision about what data we are documenting, we are looking at the stages of leaves: fresh leaves, mature leaves, dry leaves, buds, open flowers, unripe fruit, ripe fruit, and open fruits. And how we make the observation or note the status of all of these stages is by dividing the tree canopy into three parts and then seeing in how many of these three parts of the canopy are the stages present? If the stage is absent on the tree, we see it nowhere in these three parts, we put our observation for that state as none. If we see the stage that we're noticing in any one of the three parts, either here or here or here, then I put my observation as few. If the stage, for example, fresh leaves, is present in two or all three parts of my canopy, then I put my observation for fresh leaves as many. So, like that, none, few, many for all of the stages. Fresh leaves, none, mature leaves, many, dry leaves, few, buds, few, open flowers, many, unripe fruits, none, ripe fruits, none, open fruits, none. Something like that. That's how the data would look. So, here's an example, like I said. So, I have logged into my app. I have chosen the species that I want to monitor, which is red silk cotton. I have put the location of the tree and now I've come to take the data from the tree. So you select your date of observation and then you fill out this whole detail that we see. Okay, so this is my tree that I'm monitoring. I divide it in three parts like so. So this is my one part of the tree, second part of the tree, and third part of the tree. So first I go to the fresh leaf section. So you tap on this leaf to open this. Okay, so it just pops down and you see fresh leaves. So there are no fresh leaves on my tree. None of the three parts of the canopy have any fresh leaves. So I put my observation as none. No mature leaves, observation is none. No dying leaves either. They've all fallen off. So my observation is none. Yeah. Then I go to flowers and I see that there are many buds in all three of the parts of the canopy. There are buds and there are open flowers. Yeah. So I put both of these observations as many. And then I go to fruit. So when you tap on the icon of that stage, flower or fruit, then it just opens and you see all of these three stages that, or two stages that the tree is supposed to have. And then you make your observation as none, few, many by dividing the canopy into three parts. I hope this is clear. If you have any questions in this, because this is the whole and soul of Season Watch. And if you have any questions in this, please feel free to ask them now, or you can reach out to us later also, anytime, whenever you have the questions. Now, after we've added observations on the leaves and flowers and fruits on the tree on that day of observation, you can also make observations on if you see any caterpillars or bees or butterflies or birds or squirrels on the tree, because these animals visit particular phenophases or stages of leaves, flowers, and fruits on the tree. That's why we have a fixed list of these organisms. But if you see anything else, or if you want to know or note what animals did you see, you can put it in the notes section. If you tap on notes, you'll see a dialog box below, and you can just type in your details of whatever you want to add on the tree. One of the most heartbreaking note I've had to make on the tree is that the tree is no more. It was completely chopped down. It's essential to note that because that will explain why there are no future observations on that tree, right? So that's one of the notes that I hope you never have to make, but you might have to make on your trees. And after you put all of this information, you tap on save and your data is uploaded to the database, and you can see it on the website. You can download it, analyze it if you want, get simple patterns of flowering period, fruiting period, etc. on that tree. We'll have another session, I think, on how to look at your own data. So, of course, the question is, how do I recognize what tree am I looking at? We have some simple resources to begin with. We have a pocket guide with 35 common trees, which looks like a chart. We also have a chart which are not in print right now, but it's available for downloading on our website. So you can download this or order a pocket guide for yourselves and at least be able to recognize these 35 common tree species across India. And another, of course, there are more ways of identifying trees, which is to join one of our WhatsApp groups. We have state-wise WhatsApp groups. So you can join any group essentially, but I would recommend joining the group of the state that you live in so that you have some relevant information to share and also understand when other people are sharing information. So you can join these WhatsApp groups. You can use another platform called iNaturalist or an app called PlantNet to identify your plants. I'll share these links shortly in the chat box. And this is how you go about identifying your trees. Or to begin with, I'm sure you know at least some of the trees. I mean, you shared so many trees in the chat box before. So you can start with a tree that you know and then go to the trees that you don't know, so that you have some confidence about observing the trees and then also exploring the trees with season watch as you go around your neighborhood. One more thing that happens is people might feel confused about what the phenophase is, or what the buds look like, what unripe fruits look like. That is one of the biggest confusions that we have. So we also have this phenology guide on our website. If it's possible for you to scan this code, you can, or I'll also put the link in the chat box, and you can um, access this document on our website in the resources section, and download it for free and keep a PDF with you whenever you go out for a walk and recognize the phenophases on the tree. Now, coming to the most exciting event that I've been waiting to talk about, the August Tree Festival. This is the Monsoon Tree Festival, which is we also have one for spring and summer in March, and a winter one in November or December. So please stay tuned also for the next year and these tea festivals that come throughout the year. So August Tea Festival is happening between 1 and 10 August, which starts next Friday and ends on the Sunday after that. And what we're doing is making things exciting and more motivation for people to season watch trees. So you can register new trees in these 10 days so that they are counted as your observations, but make as many casual observations on the trees as possible. And the more the observations, the more the chance that you would win this festival. Yeah, we have winners in the individual category and in the school and college category. So you can win in either of these categories. And the three challenges that we have this time are 100 not out. So the challenge is to make observations on at least 100 trees per week, which means at least 200 observations to qualify to be the winner of the festival. You can make many more. People in Kerala are so enthusiastic and so efficient also with this, that they make up to 400 observations per individual, and schools go up to 1,000 observations in 10 days of the festival. It's insane. And only Tamil Nadu and I think once Pondicherry has been able to defeat Kerala in these number of observations. But I really hope other states also make the effort and hopefully leave Kerala behind for once. I really hope for that Maharashtra, hope that for Maharashtra at least once. But let's see. The second challenge we have is Ficus Frenzy, which is a ficus challenge. I told you that we have five species of ficuses, five ficus species on the list, which is banyan, soft fig Ficus mollis, which is found in the dry parts of the country, Punjab fig, which is found only in the Punjab region, Himalayan region of the country. Country fig, which is again very common, and people, which is found all over India. So you can observe as many individuals, at least 10 or more individuals of these five species or four species or three species, whatever is available around you, and participate in this challenge. So all you have to do is just add observations through the app, and you're already participating in the festival. You don't have to do any special registration, any special observation, or anything. Just go out every day and observe as many trees as you can in these 10 days of the event. Yeah. And the last challenge that we have this time is feather glory. So there are some trees which have feather-like leaves, like babul or shirish or Chinese lantern tree again, which is found mostly in the dry parts of the country, and badminton ball tree, which is an exotic tree found in the cities mainly. But is still present around us, and these are ways of getting more observations on particular species, especially those which are not paid much attention to. So please make as many observations on either these species that are mentioned on this poster, or any of the species found on the 172 species list of season watch. And then, if you have the most observations across all the people and schools and colleges that have participated, you'll stand a chance to win this festival. And it's a very big deal for us. You'll be like a hero to us, and we would send you these prizes with a lot of pride and enthusiasm. So I hope that this makes sense and you've understood how to participate in the festival and engage with season watch. And I hope, I really look forward to see all of your observations. And one way to do this is, I decide, make a goal for myself that I want to observe 20 trees per day of the festival. So I'll go out in new parts of my neighborhood and I'll observe 10 new trees that I've found in that are on the list of season watch. So that's maybe something that you can start with, or you can start with one regular tree and five casual observations for the day. So anything that works for you. But start slow, start small, start comfortably. And then once you get more comfortable with this whole process of using the app, then you can make more and more observations and explore your neighborhood trees with us with Season Watch. Um, Now, just to give more instructions about participating in the tree festival, if you already have an account, just log in and like add observations as usual. But if you're a new user, if this is completely new to you, you'll start by registering yourself and then adding observations. Then you try to complete the challenges like I mentioned before, and yeah, the winner gets certificates and prizes and a lot of applaud from the season watch team especially. That's all I wanted to share with you today. These are the details to contact us on different platforms. And I handle the outreach for the project. So you will be essentially reaching out to me no matter where you message. So please feel free, and I would love to hear about your observations, your queries, your trees, anything that you would like to share. If you want to join any of the state-wise groups, we have 19 groups so far. So if you want to join any of these groups, please write to me and I shall WhatsApp works the best or Instagram works the best. So you can just write to me and I'll share the link with you. Yeah, that's all I wanted to share. And I'll take the questions from the chat box. Sonika's question is, what if I cannot observe the tree weekly? I travel a lot to the same places repeatedly, so I might be able to observe a tree at different times in the year. That is okay, I think, Sonika. You'll have to figure out. For example, if you spend at least a month in a place, then you can have that tree from that place. Or if you travel every week to a different location, you can add one tree from each location and observe them each month. I hope that made sense. And but if you don't want to make regular observations at all, you can just add casual observations also, which are one-time observations. So anything that might work in the regular way or even casual observations are that should be fine. I hope that helps. Then Gaurav has questions. Should we add weather data in the notes part? You actually can, but that may not be used for the analysis if that's what your goal is. We take weather data from NASA mostly. For the Kerala data, we took data from NASA, but you can very very welcome to add whatever you would like to in the notes part. That's a great question though. Is it okay to monitor cultivated trees like those? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If the tree is a part of this list, then you can monitor any tree that's there. I mean, we have a lot of exotic and cultivated species just to make this whole activity accessible to people and to allow them to observe any tree around them, because the goal is also to help nature connection to some extent. So you can observe any of the trees. Like we have trees like chiku, which is a very cultivated tree. We have trees like Safa or Plumeria or Frangipani. We have the badminton ball tree is an exotic tree, like I mentioned. So we do have a lot of cultivated trees or garden trees or exotic trees on our list, and you can monitor them. Any tree on the list, you can monitor. Um, Ankita, if the tree is not on the season watch list, um, you can write to us only if you think you can monitor more than 30 individuals of that tree, or if it's very, very common. For example, if you think of a tree that's not found very often, like baobab tree, for example. I personally really want baobab tree to be on the list, but I understand that it's not very common. There are not many individuals across India and they might not even be very accessible for people. So then we have not added baobab to the list yet. So, but there are trees like, for example, this soccer ball tree, which is Morinda Korea, and we realized that this tree is quite common and spread across the Deccan. So then we added that tree to the list. So it depends on how common and accessible that tree would be, and we choose whether or not this tree can be added. But many trees can't be really added to the list, and we want majority like we want as much data as possible from all over India to come on those trees. So we decide whether the species can be added or not based on that. I hope that helps.